The I-81 Viaduct project is one of the most significant infrastructure projects our community faces. As an economic development strategist representing the region's business leadership, CenterState CEO is seeking its members' feedback on this important issue. As we know, there are varying levels of knowledge on the three proposed solutions currently under evaluation by the New York State Department of Transportation, and many of our members have shared that they would like more information. We have put together this short video presentation. The sole purpose of this presentation is to provide that additional information to members and should not be reproduced or otherwise published without consent from CenterState CEO. Should you seek additional information beyond what is presented here, there is a link to the New York State Department of Transportation's project website at the end of this presentation. This presentation is intended to provide a high-level summary of the options regarding the replacement of Interstate 81. The current I-81 viaduct no longer meets Federal Highway Administration standards, has an accident rate of 3 to 4 times the state average in some locations, and is at the end of its useful life. As such, a replacement is needed, and the New York State Department of Transportation, or NYSDOT, has embarked on a process to reconstruct I-81 through the city of Syracuse. There are 3 options to replace the viaduct. 1. A new elevated viaduct. 2. A community grid. And 3. A tunnel. Option 1. A new elevated viaduct. If a new viaduct is built, it must be built to current Federal Highway Administration standards. It would function much like today's viaduct, with nearly the same exit and entrance points. In order to be built to current highway standards, it has to be wider and straighter, resulting in significant impacts on properties adjacent to the highway. Features of a new elevated viaduct. It involves a full reconstruction of I-81 between Colvin and Spencer Streets, including the interchange with I-690. It constructs a new viaduct to today's standards, improving safety. It would require taking 25 properties, 24 of which have buildings that would be demolished, displacing approximately 50 residents and 700 employees. It would provide for higher speed travel through the city and would keep through traffic, particularly trucks, off city streets. It would be 10 to 20 feet wider and 10 feet higher than the existing viaduct. The projected cost is $1.7 billion to construct, and it would take approximately 4 to 7 years to complete. The new elevated viaduct's advantages are that it is a proven system for moving vehicles through downtown Syracuse, and it keeps through traffic off the city streets. The disadvantages of the new viaduct are the acquisition of properties and demolition of buildings, forcing the relocation of homes and businesses, and the value of that property being lost from the tax rolls. Option 2. The community grid. The community grid seeks to make use of the city's numerous north-south streets that run through downtown. These streets often have traffic levels that are well below their capacity. The goal of the community grid is to disperse the traffic across the street network. Most of the traffic that is using the current viaduct starts or ends in downtown, University Hill, the lakefront, or other neighborhoods in the city center. Under the community grid, daily commutes do not change very much from today. And the community grid has the advantage in that if there is a disruption, a driver can easily switch from one street to another to avoid it. The community grid brings automobile traffic through downtown and more visitors into the central city, supporting downtown commerce. Land now used by the viaduct can be repurposed for other uses. Features of the community grid. It disperses traffic along the city street grid. Almond Street becomes 2 lanes in each direction with turning bays. It includes a new interchange for I-690 at Krause and Irving Avenues. I-481 becomes the new I-81. It de-designates the section of I-81 between I-481 to the south and I-690, maintaining a state highway to approximately Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. It maintains the section of I-81 north of I-690 as a high-speed interstate with a new designation. It requires the acquisition and demolition of 5 buildings, displacing approximately 100 employees and no residents. It is projected to cost $1.3 billion to construct and take approximately 4 to 7 years to complete. A challenge of the community grid is that should some through traffic not divert to what is today 481, there may be more traffic on city streets, which would result in additional wear and tear on these roads. Under the community grid, the current I-481 becomes the new I-81, and a third lane is added at some key points. North of the southern I-481 interchange, today's I-81 would function like it currently does, but becomes a state highway until it transitions to city street speeds around Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, where it would become Almond Street. The section of I-81 north of downtown, from where it intersects with I-690, to the northern I-481 interchange, remains a federal highway spur with highway speeds and multiple lanes, but with a new designation. Through traffic goes around the city on what is today I-481, and drivers who want to come into the city use the old I-81. It is important to remember that according to NYSDOT, most of the traffic using the viaduct today has destinations in downtown, University Hill, and the lakefront, so in reality, not a lot of through traffic exists on the viaduct, so there may only be a limited impact on I-481. A disadvantage of the community grid is that travelers going from the south to the west, or vice versa, wishing to stay on a highway, will be redirected further east. This will add some extra miles and time to their journey, a particular concern for trucks. Option 3. A tunnel. Added back into the list of alternatives in January 2018, the tunnel does not have as much detail available about it as compared to the new viaduct and community grid. What can be shared was learned from the tunnel options NYSDOT studied earlier in the project, the tunnel feasibility study completed by WSP in 2017, as well as other recently completed and ongoing tunnel projects across the country. In Syracuse, the tunnel option envisions a 4-lane tunnel built under the path of the current I-81 viaduct or closely adjacent to it. The tunnel would provide a place for through traffic to move quickly through the city, while those destined for the center city would use elements of the community grid built above the tunnel. The advantage of the tunnel is that it allows through traffic to travel through the city without congesting city streets. The tunnel is the most expensive option, construction estimates between $3.5 and $4.5 billion, and it also imposes operating and maintenance costs the other solutions do not. These costs result from the need to run lights in the tunnel 24 hours a day, to exhaust auto emissions and pump in fresh air 24 hours a day, and to continuously pump saline groundwater away from the tunnel structure, which otherwise can cause corrosion. Features of a tunnel. It provides for higher speed travel through the city. It may or may not be an interstate. Through traffic would not have the option to exit for downtown and University Hill. It would keep through traffic, particularly trucks, off of city streets. Unknown underground conditions could increase construction time. The impacts on commute time, tax base, property acquisitions, and displacement of residents and employees are currently unknown. 12 buildings would be demolished. It's projected to cost $3.5 billion or more to construct. It would have higher annual operating and maintenance costs. Some projections show this to be as high as $10 million annually for ventilation, 24-hour lighting, and saline groundwater treatment, and is projected to take 9 years to complete. The tunnel would allow high-speed through traffic a path through the city, but would not serve the needs of travelers starting or ending in downtown or University Hill. In fact, when the tunnel is going between downtown and University Hill, it is 80 feet below ground as conceptualized by NYSDOT and WSP. There is no Harrison-Adams interchange, and there is no way to get to center city destinations from the tunnel. These travelers would need to use city streets. One advantage of the tunnel and the new viaduct option is that they keep through traffic off of city streets. NYSDOT estimates that 15% of the 72,000 vehicles per day that use the existing viaduct are trucks. That's 10,800 trucks a day. However, trucks carrying hazardous materials would not be permitted to use the tunnel. The proposed orange alternative was identified in the WSP tunnel study as the most feasible. It would be 1.7 miles in length, consisting of 1 mile of twin board sections, 1 northbound tunnel and 1 southbound tunnel, and 0.7 miles of cut and cover. There would be 22 properties taken, 12 with buildings that would be demolished, including 1 historic structure. The tunnel would be designed to handle a little over 30,000 cars a day, less than half the traffic that uses the viaduct now. It also only has a 4-foot wide breakdown lane, which means one of the key safety features sought by the Federal Highway Administration, wider breakdown lanes to get vehicles out of the flow of traffic when necessary, could not be accommodated. The study notes that building the connections between 81 and 690 at the northern portal while maintaining traffic flow would be a particularly complicated construction endeavor. Multiple east-west streets have to be closed to accommodate a tunnel, and there are infrastructure challenges, such as boring under the SU steam lines that feed the institutions on the hill. Currently, there are 3 options remaining on the table: the new elevated viaduct, the community grid, and the tunnel, and no recommendation has been made by NYSDOT as to which alternative is best. NYSDOT is now doing detailed tunnel engineering and completing the draft environmental impact study, or DEIS. The engineering and DEIS work is expected to take 12 to 18 more months to complete. The I-81 Viaduct project is one of the most significant infrastructure projects our community faces. The chosen option will bring $1 billion or more of investment into the city of Syracuse and central New York, produce countless short and long-term jobs, and shape our physical and economic landscapes for generations to come. Should you seek additional information beyond what is presented here, you can visit the New York State Department of Transportation's website for the I-81 project, www.dot.ny.gov/I-81 opportunities, where you will find a repository of reports, presentations, and other documents, as well as a more in-depth overview of this project.